want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. In today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We haven't done one of these in probably about a year. Depth charts, 2026-2027 Detroit Pistons depth chart. So what I'm going to do is start with a position. So we're going to start with point guards. So we're going to be going through 4 players on the roster that do play the point guard position. We'll be going with starting point guard, backup point guard, third string point guard, and then a very, very deep depth point guard to end the point guard room. But let's get into today's episode, you guys. Starting point guard, I think we can all be in agreement who we know the starter is going to be. Cade Cunningham. Last year with the Detroit Pistons, he averaged 23.9 points per game, 9.9 assists, 5.5 rebounds, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks, 3.7 turnovers per game, shot 46.1 from the field, 34.2 from 3, and 81.2 from the free throw line. Now, where I would like to see Cade actually improve this upcoming season is I want to see the turnovers be down a little bit more. His lowest throughout his career so far has been around 3.3. I can live with around 2 to 3 turnovers a game because I understand that he's a high usage guard. He's the engine that makes this team go. So if he can kind of keep those turnovers down, I'd be happy with it as a Piston fan. I'd also like to see his 3-point percentage actually be like around 35%. This was a year where it was very up and down. It did get better as the season was close to ending, and in the playoffs, I thought his 3-point shot actually looked the best it did this season. But I think we can all understand Cade Cunningham is going to be your starting point guard for the 2026-27 season. Now, the backup point guard, this is where I think it's going to cause a little bit of debate, and this is why we do these depth charts and these podcasts. So let's get into the backup point guard next. Now, the backup point guard is going to cause debate. I think you can have 2 possible players in your depth chart, but in mine, I have Danius Jenkins, and I'll explain to you guys why. I just want to go over what he did last year with the Pistons. 9.3 points per game, 3.9 assists, 2.3 rebounds, 0.9 steals, 0.2 blocks, 1.6 turnovers per game, 40.8 from the field, 37.4 from 3, and 83.2 from the free throw line. Now, I know there's going to be someone saying, Anthony, they drafted Abuka Okori to be the backup point guard this upcoming season. And you may be right, but I don't really think this position is set in stone. I think it is going to be a battle between Danius Jenkins and Abuka Okori, and it's going to be up to JB Bickerstaff to decide who has the better training camp, who has the better preseason, and who does he believe could back up Cade Cunningham the best. Now, I think we can't really write off what he did last season. Danius stepped into a starting role when Cade Cunningham was injured, and I think he exceeded expectations. Whether it was really clutch, big-time three-pointers to force overtime, like the Washington game still lives in my head rent-free. That game was insane. Danius was really big in that game. There was games against the Lakers when he was going up against Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic and helping the Pistons beat the Lakers. Now, Danius has definitely solidified a role on this team, especially a rotational role on this team. And we even saw it in the playoffs. Like, he was actually inserted as the starting 2 guard next to Cade Cunningham. I still believe that JB Bickerstaff and this organization view Danius Jenkins very highly. That's the reason why they're bringing him back. And I could totally see him being the backup point guard for this upcoming season. But I also kind of want to reflect when Cade did come back, he did initially struggle in a backup point guard role. But I think another season under his belt, he can definitely be a point guard that can start in a pinch if somebody's injured. He can be a backup point guard, and we've even seen him, play shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham. But just my opinion, you guys, I think Danius Jenkins is going to get the backup point guard nod. Now, Abuka Okori could definitely win the backup point guard battle between Danius Jenkins. And if you guys aren't familiar with him, maybe didn't get a chance to catch the summer league because it's summer and you're enjoying the weather out there, this is what he did in college at Stanford. 23.2 points a game, 3.6 assists, 3.6 rebounds, 1.5 steals per game, 0.3 blocks, 1.8 turnovers, 46.5 from the field, 35.4 from three, and 83.2, from the free throw line. Now, Abuka Okori is a very talented point guard that the Pistons just drafted last month. I do think there are areas for him to improve, and I think a lot of the things where he can improve is actually in the weight room. I think if he gets stronger, driving to the basket, finishing with either hand, with floaters and layups, like he just needs to add a little bit more weight and a little bit more muscle, and I think he'll actually be fine. Like the percentages don't really concern me whatsoever because he's able to get such prime real estate in the paint, and I think if he's able to play with more highly caliber NBA players, he's going to be fine. I wouldn't really read too much into his summer league. Like I thought he ended summer league on a high note. Had a really good game against the Miami Heat. Unfortunately it was a loss, but you were really impressed with what you were seeing out of Abuka Okori, and I think that's why the Pistons did draft him. I just think for right now, it is definitely going to be a battle between him and Danis for the backup point guard spot. Even though I do have him third in this podcast, I want to see a little bit more in preseason to get a gauge on what I think he could possibly be in the rotation. But for right now, I have him third in my depth chart. Now, the final to last point guard in the room is Elijah Harkless. Now, I don't know if too many of you guys even saw that the Pistons filled out their final two-way spot, but he's going to be a two-way point guard. This is what he did in the G League last year with the Utah Jazz affiliate in 5 games, 25.8 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.2 blocks, 3.4 turnovers, shot 47% from the field, 32.3 from three, and 95.8 from the free throw line. Now, Elijah Harkless, I doubt you see playing any type of significant minutes with the Detroit Pistons unless there's just a crazy amount of injuries in the point guard room, which, knock on wood, hopefully we have a very somewhat healthy offseason. I understand injuries are a part of the game, but Elijah Harkless most likely will be the starting point guard for the Motor City Cruise. But if you guys are intrigued with him, he's a defensive-minded combo guard that played with Utah. Will Hardy raved about the kid. I think he'll have a similar role to what Danish Jenkins had. He'll basically be a Danish Jenkins replacement in a sense, but the kid can score and fill it up in the G League. Had a couple of games with Utah this past season when they had some injuries that they were going through, but I wouldn't really expect too much out of Elijah Harkless. He's just a defensive-minded guard that doesn't really shoot it the best from the perimeter, but has a pretty decent wingspan too for only being around 6'2 or 6'3. But most likely he's going to be a Motor City Cruise player and a depth piece for the Pistons because he is on a two-way deal. The next position that we'll be looking at is the shooting guard room. I would argue this is the room that has the most depth on the team. So we'll be looking at the starting shooting guard, backup shooting guard, third string shooting guard, and fourth string shooting guard because there's a lot of depth on this team at this position. So let's look at it. Now, for starting shooting guard, I have seen some Pistons fans have some back and forth, whether it's Duncan Robinson or Isaiah Joe. But for me, I'm probably going to roll with Duncan Robinson, and I'll explain to you guys why I have Duncan Robinson in the starting lineup again this year. But this past season with the Pistons, he put up 12.2 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, 2.1 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.3 blocks, 0.7 turnovers, shot 45.6 from the field, 41% from three, and 75.5 from the free throw line. Now, I think with the shooting guard room, it's the most stacked room, that there's the most competition, and it's been the most stacked room the past couple of years since Trajan Langdon has been here. I think with Duncan, he had 77 games played last year with the Detroit Pistons, very durable, shot 41% from three, which he's done before in his past, but you'd have to go back like very early on in his career with the Miami Heat. And I think there was a lot of synergy there with not only Cade Cunningham, but also Jalen Duren. So I think having him in the starting lineup is something that JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons will probably roll out to start the season. Now, that does not mean he cannot lose his spot. We saw him lose his spot in the playoffs, and Danish Jenkins was the starting two guard next to Cade because they wanted someone that could also handle the basketball. But I think to start the season, Duncan Robinson most likely is going to be your starting shooting guard on opening night. So for backup shooting guard, I have newly acquired Piston Isaiah Joe. Now, with OKC last year, he put up 11.1 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.2 blocks, 0.6 turnovers, shot 45.5 from the field, 42.3 from three, and 89.4 from the free throw line. Now, I think you could probably convince me that Isaiah Joe should be the starting shooting guard, and I would probably agree with you. I just really think it depends what JB Bickerstaff wants to do and what they want to pair next to Cade Cunningham. Because I think Isaiah Joe and Duncan Robinson are very similar from a motion perspective when you talk about the shooting guard position. Now, Isaiah Joe has been one of the best three-point shooters in the league for quite some time. Shot 42% from three, and he shot 40% from three the past couple of seasons. So I could totally see a world where Isaiah Joe does get inserted into the starting lineup at some point of this season. I could also see him closing out games if you need more spacing around Cade Cunningham. And I also think his defense is a little bit underrated, doesn't get talked about enough. I think some Pistons fans are under the assumption that he's actually like a negative defender. He's really not. I think he's actually a pretty active defender. He's just kind of on the smaller side at shooting guard. But overall, I think this is a really good acquisition for the Detroit Pistons, and he's really going to help bolster their three-point percentage and their three-point makes this season. Let's get into the third string shooting guard next. So with the third string shooting guard, I have Kevin Huerter, and this is more of just like a depth for projections. I could totally see Kevin Huerter playing anywhere between a shooting guard and a small forward, depending on matchups. But this past season with the Pistons after the trading deadline in 25 games, he put up 8.6 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.1 steals, 0.3 blocks, 0.9 turnovers, shot 44.3 from the field, 29.4 from three, and 93.3 from the free throw line. Now, this is a guy that the Detroit Pistons did re-sign, and I think a lot of Pistons fans were kind of confused that the Pistons did bring back Kevin Huerter. Now, again, I don't really know what his role is going to be in Detroit. I know once we did acquire him, JB did have him off the bench quite a lot, but now you have Isaiah Joe in the mix. You have Duncan Robinson in the mix. So Kevin Huerter might just be like a little bit lower on the pecking order in terms of rotation, but there could be nights where he's backing up Ausar Thompson because the Pistons need a little bit more perimeter spacing and playmaking, because that's something that we did see out of Kevin Huerter. Was the playmaking was actually kind of a surprise. It was a little bit of a wrinkle after that trade that did involve Jaden Ivey with the Chicago Bulls and sending Kevin Huerter to Detroit. So the playmaking aspect is something that I still kind of wonder if the Pistons will experiment with. And defensively, not saying he's locked down by any means, but at least he's mobile. He can move his feet laterally. He can switch and hold his own for the most part. But I have him a little bit lower on my depth chart in the pecking order for the Detroit Pistons this upcoming season. So as we go down the list of the shooting guards on this team, the next one I have is Chaz Lanier. Now, this past season with the Pistons, he put up 2.4 points per game in 7 minutes per game, 0.7 rebounds, and half an assist, 0.2 steals. Only shot 31.5% from the field, 28.4 from three, and 83.3 from the free throw line. Now, Chaz spent a bulk of his time with the Motor City Cruise developing, and shooting guard room has just been so deep and so stacked. He just did not have a carved role or a niche with JB Bickerstaff's rotation. But I kind of have him in this fourth spot just because I think there's a chance he could carve out a role. It just really depends on the camp and the preseason he does have. But I think he's going to have to shoot like high 40s, close to 50% for JB Bickerstaff to kind of consider maybe, bumping into Kevin Huerter's minutes, maybe bumping into Isaiah Joe's minutes. I still like him as a player. He's 24 years old. I think he's going to be 25 actually pretty soon. but I was really impressed with what I saw out of him out of Summer League. He was lights out from three, but it's just kind of like where the depth is with the guard rotation, especially at the two guard rotation. I think Chaz is just going to kind of have like a Marcus Sasser role. Like he'll be in the bench, but you probably won't see him play too many games unless it's garbage time or there is an injury. Now, the last shooting guard I have in this depth chart for the room is Gary Harris. And I honestly think he probably gets waived by the Detroit Pistons. This past season with the Milwaukee Bucks, he put up 2.7 points per game, 1.3 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks, shot 44.2 from the field, 41.2 from three, and 88.9 from the free throw line in around 13 minutes a game with Milwaukee. I just don't really see room where he's actually going to get consistent playing time for the Pistons. I don't really think there's actually a role for him on this team. I think he gets waived. The Pistons are currently at 16 active roster spots, and I think he could be a casualty. The only reason why he's on this team is because we had to take back Taurean Prince and Gary Harris in the Karis LeVert trade that was later like a 6-team trade. Could totally see him getting waived. He just hasn't been the same player since his Orlando Magic days, and you're talking about like 2021 and we're in 2026. I just don't really see any role for him. If it is, it's just a vet on the bench that doesn't really get a whole lot of playing time. And I think where the Pistons are currently at, they're very stacked at shooting guard. And I think they could live with cutting and waiving Gary Harris. Now, before we get into the small forward room, we have to hear from our sponsors over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, we have 2026-2027 Detroit Pistons regular season win odds. And here are the lines for the Pistons. Minus 105 for 50.5 wins, minus 120 on the under 50.5 wins. So that's what FanDuel Sportsbook right now has the Pistons set at, is 50.5 wins. And that's actually a pretty big jump. If you guys remember last year, their under over lines were set at 44.5. Me personally, I am probably going to take the over, and it might sound like I'm being a homer, but the way this roster is constructed, I think it is a good regular season roster. I do think you will have similar challenges in the playoffs, but still, the trading deadline, a lot of things can happen with this roster. But let me know what you guys think of the Pistons being 50.5 on the FanDuel Sports Network for their under over. But let's get back into the small forward depth chart in the room. So starting small forward, I think we can all agree it's going to be Ausar Thompson. This past year with the Detroit Pistons, he put up 9.9 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 2 steals a game, which led the NBA, 0.9 blocks, 1.5 turnovers, shot 52.5 from the field, 25% from three, and 57% from the free throw line. I think we could all understand Ausar Thompson is going to be the starting small forward. That's already a lock. I think what I'd like to see from Ausar this upcoming season is I'm going to need the free throw percentage to be higher than 57%. I think we can all agree there. If you're going to be getting to the line and being aggressive, dribble drives, lobs, backdoor cuts, if you do get fouled on those, we're going to need you to make more than 57% of your attempts. I think he's more than capable of kind of being around that 65 to 72% range. Again, offensively, I really do not know what to expect from him. I think offensively, he is just so raw, and Fred Vincent and the Pistons coaching staff are working with him to be more of an offensive threat. We did see a little bit of mid-range jump shots this past season, especially like the turn-away mid-range jump shots like around the free throw line. I'd like to see like what actually happens this upcoming season if JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons coaching staff give him more of a offensive role. And I'd also like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I felt like oftentimes last year he was so passive and he was right under the basket and he would just pass the ball back up to Cade at the top of the key. So I expect big things for Ausar Thompson this year. Hopefully he's more aggressive on the offensive end of the floor. So with backup small forward, I have Ron Holland II. Now, with Ron this past season, 8.2 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.3 blocks per game, shot 43.2 from the field, 25.3 from 3 and 80.5% from the free throw line. Now, he did improve. He went from 6 points a game his rookie year to 8 points a game his sophomore year. He also saw an uptick in his three-point percentage from 23% to 25%. I know that's nothing to brag about, but there is steady improvement there with Ron. I expect him to play between a backup small forward and a backup power forward, just the way JB has used him over the past couple of seasons since he has been drafted by the Detroit Pistons. So he's going into his third year. I do expect big things from him. I'm not really sure what his role is going to be. I know JB in the past has said that Ron has just played a solidified role and we just kind of keep him in this box. I wonder if JB wants to kind of expand his role and kind of get him out of the box that he's currently playing in. So maybe he gets a longer leash, kind of like how Jalen Duren got a longer leash last season. So I do expect big things out of Ron Holland on the backup forward spots. Just going down the depth chart with small forward, I don't want to say Javonte Green is going to be a third string small forward. I don't really anticipate that, but I do think he could have a similar dual role to Ron Holland. That's what he had last year. He'll be kind of like a combo small forward, power forward. This past year with the Pistons, put up 6.9 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 0.7 assists, 1.2 steals per game, shot 44.7 from the field, 38.1 from 3, which was a career high, and 84% from the free throw line. JB Bickerstaff relied on Javonte Green heavily during the regular season, suited up for all 82 games, and he was so durable for Detroit this year. I think he'll still play in between like shooting guard, small forward, power forward. It just really depends on the matchups and what teams we are playing. But I do expect Javonte Green to still be in the rotation, and I could definitely see this rotation going like 12, 13 deep like it did last year. So the power forward room is going to look completely different, but let's start with the starting power forward. And I have John Collins being the starting power forward for the Pistons. This past season with the Los Angeles Clippers, he put 13.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.9 steals, 0.7 blocks, shot 55.2 from the field, 40.6 from 3 and 76.6 from the free throw line. Now, some people may look at those stats and say like, yo, man, we downgraded from Tobias Harris to John Collins. I think the main thing with John Collins, when I was doing a little bit more research with like his role in the Clippers, he was like maybe third, fourth option on most nights because you got to remember, he was sharing a court with James Harden, who does not pass the basketball, and Kawhi Leonard. He didn't really get a whole lot of touches. I think it's more fair to look at what John Collins did in Utah before he did join the Clippers, where, you know, he had a really high production. I don't know if he's going to get the same type of touches that Tobias Harris got, but I think if you kind of put him into that, like, maybe second, maybe third role in Detroit in the starting lineup, I could definitely see nights where Cade's feeding John Collins, or they're trying to go through John Collins with lob threats, or he's got it going from 3, or he's getting to the free throw line. I do think he's a different type of power forward. I do see some people saying like he's a clear upgrade over Tobias because he's a better player. I honestly think John Collins and Tobias are completely different power forwards. You did get younger. You did get more athletic. It's just going to look different than it did with Tobias Harris because John Collins is not really a back to the basket type of power forward that we saw Tobias Harris be this past season. He's more of a rim runner. Could definitely see him in dunker spot situations, pick and roll situations with Cade, and more of a lob threat for him as well. But I think he will be a great starting power forward for the Pistons this upcoming season. With backup power forward, this was kind of tough for me to kind of pinpoint, but the more I thought about it, it's probably going to be Taurean Prince, who the Pistons just acquired. This past season with the Milwaukee Bucks, 9.2 points per game, 3.1 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks, shot 45% from the field, 43.6 from 3, and he shot 100% from the free throw line. Now, obviously, he did have some injuries this past season, didn't play too many games, but he's been a backup power forward for the past few years. Obviously, he spent some time in Milwaukee, and there was some time in Atlanta that he did play some backup power forward. And I know there's going to be someone saying, like, Anthony, he's not a backup power forward. I get it. He's only 6'6", and I still feel they need a true backup power forward. I do like the three-point shooting. Like, that is very appealing for me. He's been a 40% three-point shooter the past 2 years in Milwaukee, but I think I'd feel more comfortable if they were to go get like a guy like a Trendon Watford, for example, who's kind of like under the radar, but could definitely be a backup power forward behind John Collins. I just kind of wonder when you're that small in the second unit, are you going to get taken advantage of? Because yes, he does have a longer wingspan of being 6'6", but I just kind of wonder if you actually go up against a bigger team, like how much of a weakness that's going to be for your second unit. So as we go deeper down the power forward depth chart, we have a two-way guy who we just saw in the summer league, Isaac Jones. This past year with the Motor City Cruise, put up 22.2 points per game, 8.9 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1 steal, 1.9 blocks, shot 61.9% from the field, 23.5% from three, and 72.8 from the free throw line. I don't anticipate Isaac Jones spending much time on the main roster. He's a depth piece. He's a two-way guy. He will probably spend a bulk of his time with the Motor City Cruise starting. He's one of the best G League power forward front court players in their league. And this summer league, he was a very tough watch for me. I mean, he did have his bright spots where he took over quarters. He was getting to the free throw line, and that's just kind of like his bread and butter is just like dribble drives and scoring close to the basket. Doesn't really have a stretch four game that you would probably want out of a power forward, but I just think he's a depth piece. He's a two-way guy. I wouldn't really expect much of seeing him on the main roster. You might see him on the bench during a game, but unless there's just so many injuries, I just don't really anticipate seeing too much out of Isaac Jones with the Detroit Pistons this upcoming season. The last position, we have 4 centers that we're going to be going over. Let's start with the starting center. It's going to be Jalen Duren. I understand he's still not under contract, has not signed a new extension. I anticipate him being the starting center to start this season. 19.5 points last season with the Pistons. Also grabbed 10.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.8 blocks, 1.9 turnovers, 65% from the field, and 74.7% from the free throw line. Also made his first All-Star team. Also finished third team All-NBA. Obviously, I think the elephant in the room this offseason with him has just been contract extensions and negotiations with the Detroit Pistons. I anticipate him being the starting center. He had an incredible regular season. I think we all understand the playoffs was very underwhelming. He wasn't really as effective as he was during the regular season in the playoffs. Now, I'm interested with him in the aspect of outside of the contract, like, are you going to display a mid-range jump shot? We saw a little bit of it this year. The Pacers game in particular is one game where I saw him shoot multiple jump shots. The Clippers game in LA, when the Clippers beat us, he displayed a couple of mid-range jump shots as well. If he can really develop a mid-range, like a 12 to 15-foot jump shot, I think it does open up his game because we saw how effective he was scoring 19.5 points just on dribble drives, getting to the free throw line, grabbing almost 11 rebounds a game. Would like to see him protect the paint a little bit more. Going to need at least a block a game out of a center that is going to be extended probably like anywhere between like a 30 to possibly a $35 million range, but Duren most likely is going to be your starting center on opening night. So the Pistons will have a new backup center. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart is going to be in Memphis. We traded him during the draft, and Paul Reed got a promotion. He's going to be promoted from a third-string center to a backup center. This past season with the Pistons in a third-string center role, he put up 7.8 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 0.9 steals, blocks, and turnovers. Shot 61.7% from the field, 32.5% from three, and 66.4% from the free throw line. I think what you get for Paul Reed is you're getting more offensive production out of the center spot. I think we will take a dip in the rim protection standpoint. what Stu did for the Pistons these past couple of years. He was an elite rim protector. Arguably could have been on a defensive team if he met the criteria. So you're going to take a little bit of a hit defensively for a backup center with Paul Reed, but you're going to get the offensive production that we saw out of him during these past playoffs and when his number was called when there was injuries or it was garbage time. One game in particular in the regular season that I thought he did a really good job was against the Bulls very early on when the Pistons wore their city jerseys. I believe he had a double-double, had like 20 points, like 11 rebounds, a couple block shots, hit some threes. Like I think that's what you're going to see out of Paul Reed is just having more opportunity to score and impact the game, and I think he'll do well. Obviously, we're going to miss Isaiah Stewart. We're going to miss the defense, miss the rim protection, but I think Paul Reed will be just fine in a backup role behind Jalen Duren. As we go a little bit deeper down the center rotation, with Paul Reed being elevated to backup, we do have a new third string center, and that's going to be Tolu Smith. He got converted from a two-way contract to a standard contract, and the Pistons did pick up his team option very early on in free agency. Now, this past season with Detroit, in limited time, he put 3.7 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 0.9 assists, 0.1 steals, 0.4 blocks, 0.5 turnovers, 50% from the field, and 67.7 from the free throw line. He's going to play that Paul Reed role. He's going to be break the glass type of emergency, whether there's injuries, whether there's foul trouble. I think the organization trust Tolu Smith and the work that he's put in. He is a little bit of a older player. I believe he's 25 years old. He'll be 26 pretty soon. So that's going to be the Pistons' third string center this upcoming season. Last but not least, we have one of our final two-way spots, and that is Ugonna Onyenso, who the Pistons drafted in the second round last month. In college, he put up 6.5 points, 4.9 rebounds, 0.6 assists, 0.6 steals, 2.9 blocks per game, 0.4 turnovers, shot 56.8 from the field, 27.8 from three, and 72.7 from the free throw line. I think after watching the Summer League, it is clear he is going to take quite a bit of development, and that's okay. He was a very late second round pick. If he hits, you're absolutely ecstatic as a Piston fan. If he doesn't, it's not really, that much of a worry because it was a very late second round pick. I think a lot of the things that he struggled with are actually teachable and correctable in the G League. So he'll probably have a very big role. I do think his conditioning needs to get a little bit better, especially in the Summer League. Oftentimes it seemed like he was just out of breath after the first quarter. I think laterally, defensively, he needs to get a little bit better. And, just like mental awareness as well. There's oftentimes that he just kind of seemed lost and out of position. And that's okay. I trust the coaching and development staff down with the Motor City Crews. Tolu Smith had developed quite a bit under Jamel McMillan, and now he's on a standard contract with the Detroit Pistons as a third string center. I trust Jamel McMillan. I trust the coaching staff down in the Motor City Crews. They do a very good job of developing players. So Ugonna Onyenso is a project that the Pistons are probably going to invest a lot of time in, and I might have to actually pop out to a Motor City Crews game this upcoming season just to see how he's progressing and developing as a center that could possibly be a rotational big maybe over the next couple of seasons. I hope you guys did enjoy today's podcast. It was a lot of fun to make, but it did take me a lot of time. I think after we were done and we clocked it out, we were around like maybe 9.5 hours just with the graphics, doing some research on these players, and just kind of compiling everything together. But I enjoy making podcasts for you guys. I wanted to give you something to enjoy this week. And obviously, we didn't get to have a podcast Saturday, so this will be a Sunday episode. But let me know down below in the comment section if you are watching on YouTube. You get to see all the graphics and the stats and what you thought of the depth chart. Do you agree with this depth chart? Do you think that there's a player that maybe I rated a little bit too lowly. I already know the backup point guard is probably going to be the biggest debate. I can see the backup power forward being debated heavily as well. But I'll talk to you guys down below in the comment section. If you're an audio listener, let me know what you think of the depth chart podcast that we did today. I'll talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Like always, hope you guys are staying safe. Take care, and we'll catch you guys in the next Pistons Talk podcast episode. Peace.